The genetic influence has been known forever, not forever, but for many years. Why it happens, I think, is difficult to explain because the idea in most people's minds is that reading is so easy, it's so simple. Mm-hmm. And I think for people who have become good readers, what we call that group that are typical developing mm-hmm. readers, mm-hmm. that seems to be true. It seems to happen almost no matter how they are taught. You know, they just learn to become good readers and good spellers, and they like reading and so on. But there's a whole group of students that maybe constitutes 35 to 40% of all children who struggle. Mm-hmm. That's an amazing number. The number who are actually identified and called learning disabled or dyslexic is a very small portion of that, like maybe, you know, 1 to 5% of that group. So over the years, I've changed my perception of what constitutes the process of reading mm-hmm. and how it happens. So back in the day, when I was a school psychologist, we saw people with disabilities as being very different. Mm-hmm. Something was totally different about them, right? So it wasn't, there was normal reading, and then there's these people, the dyslexics who will say the extremes, there's something different. So because they're different, there's not much we can do about it. And at the time, that was true because we didn't have enough information on brain plasticity at that point in time. And indeed, if you looked at the brains mm-hmm. of dyslexics, you know, not students, there were adults. There was only one study done on dyslexic adults that involved the brain at that period in time. And when they looked at the brain of these 40-year-old adults, sure enough, they found major differences in how their brain was structured. Well, that was a very, very discouraging piece of information because it sort of implied that you couldn't do a thing about it. Like, well, these brains are different, you know? So, but once again, we beg the question, what's chicken and what's egg, right? Mm-hmm. So did the brain become different or was it born different? So the answer is probably somewhere in between. I think there are genetic and brain structural differences that occur with a child mm-hmm. From the time from the time they're born, and by the time they hit 5 or 6 years old, the brain structure of dyslexic student is indeed probably a little bit different. Mm-hmm. And there are areas of the brain now that we can identify where that difference occurs. But the powerful news is, the good news is that we can change that brain structure with the right kind of teaching.